Hello everybody, this is Amber with Personal Hair Therapy, and I'm coming to you today with a little bit of an updated video on how to make a custom template for your topper or bonded unit. The video that I currently had posted is good, and it's a good step-by-step tutorial, but I think this will be even better and a little bit easier for you. Since I initially did that video, I've discovered that instead of using the saran wrap, it's a little bit easier to use just a plain, what we call color cap, or just a disposable shower cap. So with the help of my lovely assistant here, we're going to demonstrate making the template today. We're going to start with a little bit of a larger template and then scale it back a little bit so that you can see if you need something that's a little bit bigger, how to do that, and then also if you need something a little bit smaller, how to do that as well. So a couple things you're going to need, and really just a couple, is going to be this cap, and this will be you. Obviously many of you, if you're not already wearing some sort of hair, you're going to have a full head of hair, as little or as much as it may be, but you're still going to have hair here. I'm going to be showing you this on her today just so that you can really get a good idea of what this looks like against the scalp, and as far as sizing goes, it's a little bit easier to show the markings without the hair. But you're going to have hair, and what I want you to do is just wet it down and slick it down as close to your head as possible. If you move into a bonded unit and you end up eliminating hair at any time, you can always redo the template, and I can help you with that as well. So just to start out, what I want you to do is make your hair wet and as slick and close to the head as possible. Then you're going to need, first thing is going to be this cap. Second thing is going to be your packing tape, just a clear packing tape. It can be packing tape or shipping tape, anything like that. I've even had people use masking tape. That would work as well, but when you're making your markings, it's helpful to be able to see through it. So this packing tape is great. A permanent marker so that you can mark the template for sizing, as well as mark it with your name and mark it front and back, and a pair of scissors for you to cut out the template. So you're going to start by just putting the shower cap on your head, kind of making it as tight as possible. And then what you're going to do with this tape is you're going to layer it. And for the sake of today, I'm only going to do probably one, maybe two layers on it. The more layers of tape you use, the harder the shell is going to be, and the more indestructible it's going to be. So you can just kind of gauge how many layers of tape you want to put on there. But I'm going to start by putting just 1 to 2 layers on today, and I'll show you exactly how we're going to do that. Basically, there's no right or wrong way to do this. So this one I'm going to start front to back. Side to side, and then we're just going to layer as many as we need on here to get a nice hard shell. You're going to kind of, once you get to the sides, you don't have to go straight up and down or side to side. You can kind of go around, and what that does too is helps to tighten that up a little bit around the head. You don't want it super tight because you want it to give a little bit. But if you can see on this side of the head, I secure it, and then I just kind of wrap it to the side of the head. Just brings it in a little bit. And then a couple more layers. And we'll go ahead and give it a couple markings. I'll show you how to do that. Starting with a little bit of a larger template, something that some of you might be familiar with as what's sometimes called, some people refer to as a 3/4 cap. if you were actually doing a full cap, which not very many of you would be doing that. But we'll start with that so that you can really see how that works. Okay, now if you just kind of feel around after you've done it, and you'd be doing this, but if you feel around after you've done it, you'll be able to tell if there's any spots that you've missed. And then the next step is to take your pen, and if you were to be making a full cap, this mannequin has a very small head. It's definitely not a normal sized head, but in any case, what you will do is, this is where it's really helpful to be able to see through the tape, because what you're going to do is go around the hairline, and you're going to mark this exactly where the hairline is. You're going to do the other side. Now, this is something where a lot of people think that they're going to need assistance with. They're going to feel like maybe they need a friend or your partner or your sister or somebody that's you're comfortable with helping with you, helping to do this with you. Some people don't have that. You don't have to have an assistant. It's okay. You would really be able to manage it pretty well on your own. So that would be up to you. One small spot down here at the bottom where I don't have tape, I'm going to tape that up. And then what I would do, while this is still on the head, is I don't expect you to be able to mark it while it's on your head with an F for the front, but just make a small mark there at the front, especially with the smaller sizes, so that you know what's front and back when you actually take this off to cut it out and put it back on. Now again, this is for the full-size cap. Many of you will not be doing a full-size cap. Then what you're going to do is just take your scissors, any pair of scissors is fine, and you're going to go right along the lines that you drew. And just cut along those lines. It doesn't have to be perfect. Alright, and that was pretty easy, right? So now you've got the template itself, and you can see that it's a nice hard shell. If you've put more layers of tape on there, it'll be even sturdier, but this is just fine. And you can see, you can fold it up. This is going to fit nicely in an envelope when you go to send it to me. And also, when I unfold it, when the factory unfolds it, it's going to look exactly like it did when you made it. So it's a great method, nice and sturdy. Once you have it cut out like this, you're going to go back to where that mark was on the very front of it, so you know that that's your front. And then you're going to put it right back on your head. And when you do that, you're going to find that it matches that hairline just perfectly. Again, this is for a full cap. Not all of you are going to be making a full cap. So if you're not making a full cap, if you are, you're all done here. You're going to mark it with an F for the front, a B for the back. You're going to put your name somewhere on it. You're going to fold it up just like I showed you, throw it in an envelope, and ship it to me. Don't worry that you have to package it really carefully. It's not fragile. It's going to unfold and be just fine when it gets to me. If you are making a smaller cap, let's say something that's a little bit closer to what some people refer to as a 3/4 cap, okay? You're going to go do exactly the steps that we just did, only with the cap and the tape. So you're going to go back to before we did any markings, before we cut it out, and you're going to go back to where you have the whole cap on and you've just taped, and now you're ready to do your markings. Now here's the great thing about this is you don't have to get it perfect, because I'm going to show you if you feel like you get it a little bit too small, I'm going to show you how to make it a little bit bigger. If you feel like you've made it too big, I'm going to show you how to scale it back a little bit. So some of you have a lot of diffuse thinning, which is pretty normal. Some of you have thinning that's kind of contained in a specific spot, a lot of times through the top and the crown of the head. So for those of you who have diffuse thinning and you want to go a little bit larger with the unit, you want to go to where, if most of your thinning is through the top, and then it kind of starts to thicken up as you get towards the perimeter. So a lot of times you'll have a lot of thinness through this area, and still thinning, but getting thicker, density increasing as you're going down towards the nape, towards the ears. That's really common. It's still diffuse thinning, but it's going to be concentrated in some of those areas. So if I have talked to you and we've talked about your occipital bone, see this little ridge right here is kind of where the head comes out, and there's this little knob, and you could feel it back here. It's the bone that protrudes before you go down into the nape. If we've talked about it, and I've mentioned the occipital bone and bringing the template down to that occipital bone, that's where it's going to be. So what you need to do is come back here, and you're going to take this, and you got that occipital right there, and you're going to make one mark right there, okay? And then sometimes when we've been talking about how to size your template, I talked to you about, coming to where most of the thinning is, and then leaving a little bit of extra border. Even if the density starts to increase around this area, leave a little bit of extra border around the edge, so cover your thinnest areas. Then give another inch, which sometimes will leave 1 or 2 or 3 fingers above the ear. So if I've talked to you about how many fingers above the ear where your template's going to be, that's exactly what we're talking about. This is 2 fingers, this would be 3 fingers, and it'll give you that maximum coverage on your thinnest areas and a little bit of the perimeter. So let's say we've talked about 2 fingers above the ear, so we're going to do that. Take those 2 fingers and make a little mark there. This is why you don't necessarily need a hand with this, is because a lot of it's really done by feel, and you'll figure that out too as you go. Again, so then you've got this side, 2 fingers, and you're going to make your mark. Now, if sometimes your ears are uneven, so if you see that it looks a little bit uneven when you're done, that's okay, but this is going to be, her head's going to be pretty even. So it's going to be about there. Now here's what you're going to do. You're going to bring these up, depending on what you're going to do with your templates, and you and I have probably already discussed that, but you're going to bring these up kind of to meet this front hairline on both sides. You can do this when you take the template off as well. You can see I don't really need it on my head to be able to follow this around and have it meet that in the front. And then also, I'm going to take it and have these lines meet this occipital bone in the back. And what you're actually going to end up with is something that looks similar to a ball cap, only without the bill on it. So, back on her for a second. This back here. So now you can see we've marked the template. What we're going to do is cut this out. Again, make sure you've got a little mark in the front where your front is, so that you don't lose track of that, because once you get it cut out, especially with this kind of size, it's easy to lose track, believe me, of what's front and what's back. And if I get it and I can't tell what's front and what's back, then you'll probably end up having to do a redo, and we don't want that. So then again, you're going to just cut around these lines that you've made. And as you can see, it's not perfect. Still got a little bit of pen here and there. It's not perfect. But what you're going to want to do then is take this back. Here's your front. You know that because you made that little bit of mark in the front. And I'm going to line this up with your hairline. And now you'll be able to see exactly what kind of coverage you're going to get with this. Okay? Now, if you're looking for something where you don't need as much coverage in the back, you're going to go back to the very beginning where we had just the cap and the tape on before you've done any markings at all. You're going to do this marking maybe just over your crown in the back, depending on what your thinness is. Now remember, if you have a lot of concentrated thinning through the top, you come back just over the crown area. You may only need coverage to about here. You may not need to go all the way down to the occipital bone. And then you might have those 2 or 3 fingers on the side again. So in this case, you might even have to bring it up a little bit further. So then you're going to connect those lines. And you can even take it off to do that. But you're going to connect those lines. And then you're also going to bring these lines in towards the front hairline. We're going to cut again. And I'm going to show you what that particular sized template may look like. Now this is getting a little bit closer to what a lot of people refer to as a topper. Although when you're going custom, you know, those things like toppers and 3/4 don't necessarily exist, because what we're talking about comes down to more like what are the real measurements of your template. Again, we have that nice little marking in the front, so we know where front and back is. And now you're going to have sort of just that topper look. You're going to have that nice coverage on the top of your head. It's going to come down over your crown, but you're going to be utilizing all this hair on the side, whether you're using clips or whether you're going to be bonding. Okay, and then lastly, again, you may have a ton of thinning through your part area, but maybe it doesn't spread out a whole lot to the sides. And so what you can do is just get that size to where you think, well, it's really just through my part area. Maybe you're going to be looking at something that's maybe just a 5 by 5 or a 6 by 6. So you're going to make the mark about where you feel, and you probably know, because we know that you've been looking at your hair and looking at your scalp shining through for quite some time. So you might go in here and think, okay, well, this seems about good. You feel it on the top of your head. Give a little bit of a mark there, a little bit over onto the sides. And then you're, again, going to sort of connect all of that together. Bring all of your markings out to the front. And you're going to cut along those lines again. And now you're going to see you've got really just what is really, really just a topper. And then you're going to have just that nice, let's see if I can down for you, just that nice top coverage, okay? Now, if you need a size that's just this big, you don't need to do all the other steps that we just did. All you need to do is the cap, the tape over it, and mark. You don't need to start with the bigger size, scale it back, scale it back, scale it back. Now let's say you made this template and you think, oh great, it's too small, and you don't want to go through all of the steps all over again to make it a little bit bigger. It's okay, you don't have to do that, because here's what you can do. To make it a little bit bigger, I just want you to go around and I want you to put a perimeter of tape all the way around the whole unit. Okay? I'm going to start down the sides. And then along the back. Okay? And then on the front as well. Okay? So now you've got a whole bunch of tape around the existing template, and then I just want you to flip it right over. And I want you to do the same thing by putting another slice of tape on top of here, so sort of putting those two pieces of tape sticky side together. And what you've done is just sort of just taken a little bit of a sidestep here without having to start the process all over again, because sometimes that can be, sometimes this is overwhelming enough to do it once. Sometimes you don't want to have to do it twice. And last piece. Okay, so now you've got this extra perimeter and you think, you know, I think I made it just about an inch too small. So go ahead and just give yourself an extra border here around the edge. And I know I make this look quick and easy. You might feel like it takes you a little bit longer, but it really is just this easy. And then voila, you've got the template that you originally had. New markings around the edge with the tape we already added. It's still contoured to your head because all we did is add that perimeter to what already fit your head. And then we're going to cut that out. Okay, so now we have a little bit of a bigger template, something that's a little bit bigger than what you originally had, as you felt like you needed just a little bit bigger. Guess what? It still fits perfectly, so you don't have to start from scratch. Let's see if I can get this to where it fits. There you go. And now you've got yourself sized for a little bit of a bigger unit, okay? And if it ends up too big, then all you do is just trim a little bit at a time, and then you can retry it, and retry it, and see how that works. Okay, so the most important things, once you get it to where it's right, is you want to mark this F for front and B for back, okay? Because you can see with this size unit, and this one's just a little bit crooked, I would trim this edge off just a little bit just to bring it in and make it even. But you can see if I got this in the mail and it wasn't marked front or back, I could easily say that this was front and this was back. For some units it doesn't matter that much. For some it's really helpful and can be definitely in question what's front and what's back if it's not marked. And then the last thing that you want to do is mark it with your name. So whether it's the inside, whether it's the outside, just put your name on there for me. And also, if you would put the month and the year. I'll tell you why that is, because sometimes as you go forward in wearing hair, sometimes, especially if you have diffuse thinning, you're going to have this thinning through the top, and then if it starts to creep out and out and out, you might end up making a new one of these. What I want to do is when I pull out 2 or 3 of your templates, I definitely want to know what's the most recent one, and sometimes you can't necessarily tell without that date, so that's super helpful. Just like I showed you before, you can fold it up. You can see how small this is. This would even fit in a standard size envelope. What I would do is put it in maybe a 6x9 manila envelope, maybe a padded envelope, throw my name and address on it, and ship it off to me. If you're including a hair sample for color, go ahead and put that in here as well. Again, this is Amber with Personal Hair Therapy. If you need additional help with making your template, I can do that as well. I can give you some Skype instruction or also just some verbal phone instruction. You can also visit me on the web, www.personalhairtherapy.com, or reach me at amber@personalhairtherapy.com. Thanks.